Welcome, everyone. I am Nathan. He is Raven, and we are the Super Brothers from another mother.
Alright, welcome once again to another episode of the Super Infodumb Brothers. We're back with Superman 2025.
Wow.
And we have our recurring Superman guest, Joseph Holmes.
You might say he's our super friend.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But also yes.
Welcome once again. Why don't you introduce yourself for those who haven't heard our other episodes, Joseph?
I am Joseph Holmes. I am a New York City-based film critic and culture critic and podcast host. And yes, longtime Superman fan. And so I have been brought in mostly with my willingness to multiple episodes of the show. Whenever there's a Superman related episode, my adventures with Superman has been the ones we've done. I come back and I talk about Superman, which is honestly pretty great because I have just finding excuses to talk about my love of this character and all of the things regarding that is hard to pass up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got award-winning. We were talking about that.
Yes, also won an award.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm award. Yes, I got back from my from a film festival, and I got best writer for which I shared with my co-writer Alyssa Plock on the Hard Faith Film Festival for the short film Lizzie Lives Again, which was very exciting. And yes, now we joked I'm going to put that in all my bios. Award-winning writer. It's like, you know, and you know, it's like, hey, it's don't think about it too much. I'm an award-winning writer, and that's now you all have to refer to me as award-winning writer for the rest of your lives, which is great.
Yeah.
Just as long as you all refer to me as Mr. Dr. Nathan.
Mr.
You're stating what you are.
Look, as long as you find some obscure website to give you a doctorate, I will refer to you as a doctor. I will never refer to you as Mr. though.
All right, fine. Esquire.
All right. Well, we could work with that.
All right, yeah.
Well, it is really nice to have you back. It's really exciting always to have you as genuinely as a fan. So you're awesome, and like you deserve
You're
that
awesome.
award. Thank you.
And I'm awesome too.
Well, slightly less awesome if you have to say that you're awesome.
I say that you're awesome every episode. I thought you didn't like it.
No. He doesn't like other people giving him compliments. He likes to give it to himself.
For the sake of the bit, I will.
Fair.
Oh man. Okay, so I am very. So we were talking like in the last episode of essentially the Joseph Holmes like library. We talked about a little bit about this movie coming out and like essentially like how excited we were or like if we had any thoughts about it. And I feel like I said before, I was really excited and I was really happy that it was happening because I trusted that James Gunn was gonna pull it off because of because of what I've seen of him with his other projects. Was I worried that it was gonna be like raunchy? I was like, I don't think so, because I think James Gunn is not dumb enough to make this movie like for adults. I think he was gonna make it's Superman, so you got to make it for like a wider audience.
I know you said wider, but I heard whiter. I'm like, not wrong.
I mean, they did cancel the Michael B. Jordan Superman adaptation.
Oh my gosh. So, okay. So, let us like dive into the movie. We can recount what happened, and as we do, we can say what we think and the things that we thought about during said recap. Um, and the movie kind of starts with a north, I think, is it North Pole? It's just the shot,
The Arctic,
snowy,
yeah.
Yeah.
the Arctic, the shot of the Arctic, and it gives us like a brief explanation of what's going on. And immediately I was like, yes, thank you. I don't need I'm a person who grew up during like, I was born in 99. I grew up with a bunch of shows and movies, animated shows and movies for like this for Superman, the Justice League. I didn't know any of the characters. I was just like thrown into them, and like I enjoyed it. Like I didn't know that the Flash was Wally West. So, like I didn't know like the difference between Wally West and Barry Allen or anything like that. Like I didn't know there were other Green Lanterns. Like I was just thrown into the Justice League animated series, and I just enjoyed it, and I understood what was going on. I didn't know everything about it, but like I like established universes. I think established universes are okay to exist. There are some stories that do need explanation, but I think that superheroes have been in their zeitgeist for so long now that we don't need that much explanation. We understand. We know who Superman is. We know who Batman is. We know who Spider-Man is. We don't need more explanation of that. And to have an established world where superheroes are going around and doing their thing already is, to me, it's always better than just wanting to create little origin stories for each character, and this is how that guy came in and this is how this guy comes in. Like I think it's unnecessary nowadays. Maybe back in the day when people didn't know comic books at all, but now we're in a time where you can look up a YouTube video that explains to you what's happening before you watch a movie. So it's like we don't need that much explanation. And I love that it was like, here's what's going on, here's how it's starting, bam, right
Like
into the
the
movie.
Star Wars introduction crawl.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I was really, really happy with that. And it's just we start with Superman just beat up. Like I didn't know that was gonna be the first part of the movie. Actually, the trailer just gives us pretty much a lot of the first couple of minutes from the movie. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think we've definitely lived for past 20 years on two extremes of this issue. On the one hand, you've had the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies and a lot of these even like Iron Man movie and Batman movies, and a lot of these movies that were expecting that the majority of the audience for these movies was not familiar with the superhero logic, or at least didn't resonate with the superhero logic of the worlds. And so they spent a lot of time treating it as, well, what if this happened in our world? And how do we make the superhero logic plausible to someone who didn't already accept that internal mechanism, internal worldview, internal whatever you want to call it, narrative structure. On the other hand, we've had the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which essentially expected people, in order to enjoy this movie, you have to have watched 15 other movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what James Gunn has done here is, like you said, there is now, most people have been watching these movies for the past 20 years. And so he says you don't have to,
reinvent the
get
wheel.
people to get people to buy this logic. They already do. But also he's saying that maybe in a sense you never had to exactly, because people can accept Star Wars, where it's like, this is just the way things work here. You can accept Game of Thrones. This is just the way things work here. You don't have to watch a bunch of other stuff to accept this, because you're just accepting that this is a different world. And to his credit, you had stuff like Blade back in the late 90s, which was just like, look, we don't have to get you to accept vampires and daywalkers. We're going to throw you in that world and expect that you're going to buy the internal logic of the world if we do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And so he really has figured out a way to get people to accept this world of superhero logic without having to making people feel like they have to do homework, because he's getting people to accept this is the way this world works, but I'm going to give you all the information you need about these characters and this world for this story, whatever's relevant for this story. What the example that I give is, of someone doing this badly or well in a Marvel movie is actually this year, Captain America, the Brave and the Bold, not Brave and the Bold, Captain America, Brave New World versus Thunderbolts. Because if you watch Captain America, Brave New World, they never mention Bucky once in the story. And then he shows up at the end. And the only reason his showing up has an emotional payoff is if you've watched the other movies. On the flip side, with somebody like something like Thunderbolts, they throw you into a world that is full of superheroes and the Avengers are a thing and stuff like that. But they only bring up the Avengers and all these characters in the context to what's relevant to the story they're telling now. So it feels like, okay, we're watching a story about the Thunderbolts, but like the Incredibles, it exists in this kind of other world that the story is asking me to accept. And because it's telling me that's the story to accept, I'm accepting it. So I think that James Gunn, as one of the best writer-directors of the Marvel Universe movies, has imported that understanding into his new universe that he's establishing. And the reason he's doing that is because the cost of having to either make something that was reliant upon homework is the movie itself is not very satisfying, or as satisfying. But then also, which is again part of the Thunderbolts problem, as Kevin Feige talked about, is that people didn't go see it because they thought, I'm going to have watched all these other TV shows in order to accept it, even though you didn't. It turned out not to be true of Thunderbolts. But also, if you try to reintroduce the wheel every single time, it limits the kinds of stories you can tell. Because you're not able to get to the really cool stuff, get to the really fun stuff, get to exciting stuff. Because then everybody always talks about, man, we had to spend an entire movie like Batman Begins establishing a world before we got to the Dark Knight. Now for James Gunn, it's like you can go directly to the Dark Knight because you don't have to establish all this other stuff.
Like there are some shortcuts you can take, and but it's important, and they're useful shortcuts because it's not like trying to cut corners when terms of making a creative thing. It's just more like, no, we just want to focus on the main relevant points for making this creative thing in order for people to have a grounded, entertaining experience. We don't want to make people have to do homework, and we also don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by doing more work than we need to. We just need to make a good story that people can feel like they can enjoy on its own merits, and at the same time, it will maybe inspire them to go do homework afterwards if they enjoy it that much. And I feel like that's the main point of this, where it's this movie in itself may be introduction to a lot of people for Superman, believe it or not, surprisingly, maybe enough. But this movie is probably good enough on its own merits because of that people will be like, oh, I like this Superman guy. Let me go look up more stuff about him. For all the other examples you made, we talked about, say the Justice League cartoon. You didn't know most of the heroes in that cartoon, but you grew to know them and love them through watching that cartoon. And then you're like, I feel like reading some comic books about this Flash guy or this Wonder Woman character, all this kind of stuff. So it's the point is to make a good established story to inspire you to want to go enjoy more of these characters, as opposed to trying too hard to force you to be this is why you need to like these characters because we're reinventing the wheel over again. It's no. You want to go back and look at the wheel when it's first made. Go ahead and do that. We'll show you why you want to do that, though, by giving you a good story about this wheel.
Yeah, and I'll say, again, I have a lot of criticisms of this movie, but the one thing it did well was make Superman and his world something that the average person says, oh, I actually am excited about this character and this world now in ways that I wasn't before. And that has done that's a great gift to the world and
Yeah.
to Superman fandom in general.
Yeah, and that should be the goal of any adaptation. It's not reinventing what the thing has done. It's about giving you a reason why this idea even mattered to begin with. So like any sort of adaptation that makes you feel like, oh, this thing is interesting at all, it's failed as an adaptation. Where like you could do any sort of new thing you want with it or try to reinvent it in some ways, but if you fail to capture the spirit of like why the original thing was good to begin with, then you failed as an adaptation.
And again, for all of the good things in the Zack Snyder films, again, somebody who's lived through both, the Zack Snyder films did not make the average person excited about Superman as a character and a property.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem with the Marvel situation is that the way Marvel movies are and Marvel shows is not how comic books work. Comic books have stories for individual characters, and then there is a crossover event. So it's like, oh, this character crossing over with this character, or all these characters, the Avengers, are now together facing off a specific problem. But when you pick up an issue of Spider-Man, you don't need to know anything else that's going on in the Marvel Universe. You don't. You just need to know what happened in the last issue of Spider-Man. That's it. You don't need to do homework. You don't need to know anything that's going on anywhere else. But like Miles Morales might pop up, it's like in the comic, and you're like, okay, he's there. I don't know why he's there, but it's not relevant to the story. He's just a character in it. That's the problem with the Marvel movies, is that, just to reference the Captain America that came out this year, you had to know what happened in The Incredible Hulk, a movie that came out decades ago. And it's not relevant in the zeitgeist of people. Like, it's not relevant in the minds of people anymore. Like, we don't care what happened in The Incredible Hulk. And you're, like, answering a question that was, like, made, like, I don't know, more than 20 years ago, or, like, so.
And answering the question in the Captain America movie as opposed to, I don't know, a Hulk movie?
Yeah, it's so weird, and that is the problem with Marvel, is that they want to continue the stories of other characters in other movies. And I have watched all those movies, and I can watch it and be like, okay, I understand what's going on. But like, I didn't want to watch the Captain America movie because I was like, when I watch Captain America, I don't think Hulk. Why is the Hulk here? And I honestly didn't want to watch it because I haven't, because it sounds silly and it's dumb. Like, I don't relate Captain America with Hulk, and I think it's like weird to add Hulk into the story. I think it's weird to add Hulk elements into the story. It doesn't make any sense, to me, at least. And it's like, it just doesn't work. It's like having, I don't know, it's like having let's say, Moon Knight fighting Spider-Man villains. Moon Knight is gonna kill all of those people. Like, it's like, that's not a story I want to see. Like, I don't want to see Moon Knight killing all the Spider-Man villains. So it's like, I mean, some people might want to see that, but like,
it's like you're reading a comic about, I don't know, Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur, and most of the comic is dedicated to like some age-old Wolverine story arc where like he has to reconcile his son. And I'm like, I'm here to read about Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Why am I reading about Wolverine and his son? Like, what's going on?
Exactly. So I think that is the problem of Marvel right now. It's wanting to complete stories or complete story arcs in someone else's story. Like, we had that happen with the Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that, and James Gunn fought against that. He was like, I don't want to have Thor on my team. He's not part of the story. He's not relevant. Like, I don't want that. So they had to, like, kick him out. I think it was in Love and Thunder that it was kind of setting up, so he left. So I think James Gunn understands, like, We just need to have a story. And the story is, this is the story that's happening. You don't need to watch Peacemaker to understand what was going on in the Superman movie. You don't need to watch.
That's an excellent point, because
Yeah.
Peacemaker
Yeah.
was, well, I mean, spoilers. Peacemaker
Creature-
does show up in this movie,
Mhm.
but he shows up in a way that is relevant to the story, and they tell you everything you need to know about Peacemaker to appreciate him as he is relevant to the story, and
Also-
not beyond that.
Also, my dad laughed and my
Yeah.
brother laughed. They don't know who Peacemaker is.
Yeah.
They haven't watched the show. It was just funny. Like,
Yeah,
it
it's
was just funny to see John Cena as a superhero. And maybe people don't know who that is, but it's still funny to
Because he
see
served
John
his
Cena
purpose.
as a
Because for the
superhero.
purpose of the story, he just needed to be a funny side character that shows up.
Well, again,
But, like-
we've established that we're in a world that has superheroes in it and has these more jerk superheroes in it than Superman. Again, everything that was relevant about it for the audience was there.
Yeah, because like at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you can have these stories like connect in the sense that they're in the same universe. They could run parallel to each other, but not to the point where like one story needs to support another story in order for that original story to exist. Like it's not like they're parallel highways, I guess, but like you're not trying to like splice one highway into another. They're all can stand on their own 2 feet.
Exactly. Like, you can have different stories being told in the same universe without them having to interact with each other. Because when they do interact with each other, is going to be that much greater. That's why Marvel started well. Marvel started good, and that was the cool thing about Marvel before, is that it was like Iron Man, then Captain America. And it introduced these different characters, Thor, and it's like, and then those were different stories, completely different stories, and then Avengers, and that's when everything came together. Marvel should go back to that. It's just like the tell different stories. They don't need to be connected, and then have the big crossover. Anyways, point is, James Gunn is making a better universe already by having 3 different properties, including Creature Commandos, that all take place in the same universe. But you don't have to watch those to watch this movie. Like, you don't need to know. But the cool thing is that those things are happening somewhere else in the world. They're happening sometime else. So it affects the universe. But you don't necessarily need to know what happened in that story to continue enjoying the Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing I'm guessing is going to happen with every story we're going to see. I mean, that the only reason the Clayface movie seemed very interesting to me is to see how much of Gotham and how much of the other supervillains and stuff like that we're going to see. How much like Gotham stuff we're going to get to see in that movie, if it's taking place on Gotham, which I hopefully it does. But yeah. Anyways,
So, all that to say, the movie starts with us hitting the ground running with Superman, the universe already established, and we dig it.
yes. Superman gets dragged by Crypto to his incredibly comic book accurate
Fortress of
like-
Solitude.
Fortress of Solitude, and he enters into the Fortress of Solitude. He has robots that help him get better with the sun. And he wants to get back into the fight, I think, right?
Yes.
He's fighting what was the name of the guy?
The Hammer of Barovia.
Bravia, yes.
Barovia. At least that's what he's calling himself at this point in the movie, correct?
Exactly. So
Which, again, we keep forgetting to do this, even though we feel like it should be obvious, but spoiler alert, obviously.
we do keep forgetting to do that. Spoiler alert to everyone. If you haven't watched a Superman movie, just do that first and then come back. Yes. We have gone to like like the half of the movie, and then we remember, hey, spoiler alert. But yeah,
so Superman heals himself back up, and while he's getting a big old hefty dose of sunlight in order to heal himself back up, and I think around the same time is when they introduce like the plot point of his parents and their courting. I think because I think
exactly. It's the it soothes him to hear the message from his parents, and of course his parents are giving the message of we love you and do good on.
We have this plan for you, blah blah blah.
Plan for you and. Have this.
We found Earth. Go and do good things over there.
And then half the message is cut off. And of course, as soon as you hear that, you say, "Okay, there's going to be a twist here."
I see what you're doing, Chekhov. I see that gun.
Yeah.
We've
established Krypto, which is the big thing that everybody got very excited about with this movie, the introduction of Krypto. Again, which is when you have a world where it's like we're going to accept superhero logic, you can have a cute dog with a cape and Superman in with his trunks, and all of that's okay, and you don't have to defend it, and you just have it, and everyone loves it because the idea of Superman having a dog only enhances the idea of him being this all-American man and his best friend character, but having Krypto also be like a dog that's not just like a good boy all the time, but
he's
the way I describe it,
good boy.
The way I describe it is he's like Clifford the big red dog, where the whole idea is that he means well, but he's a dog who's big, and so always gets into trouble because he is bigger than he should.
Perpetually a bull in a china shop.
Exactly. And so Krypto is perpetually a bull, and so that makes. One thing about Superman is that he is supposed to be this guy who's like really good and wholesome, but oftentimes the writers don't like to have a bad or less wholesome characters around him, which means you don't get the contrast. And so I do like one of the things that, because Batman is a dark and gritty guy, but he's always has like Robin around him saying, "Hey, lighten up," which means that you get that back and forth dynamic, and that's one of the things I liked in this about with having Krypto, who's a bad dog, with Superman, who's a wholesome guy, and then people like Supergirl and people like Guy Gardner, who are always kind of pushing back on Superman's wholesomeness, and even Lois Lane, because that allows you to have Superman seem unique and have contrast with all of this.
I was very happy. So Nathan knows I don't like a lot of cursing in movies, but I was very happy that I love when a show can do contrast like this, where it's like Superman was the only person that did not curse in this movie, and it was the only time he did was to refer to something that Lois said.
Yes.
So it was like she said, "Oh, that hashtag like super the bad word," and it was like he repeated it, but that was the only time that he cursed, and it wasn't to someone or at something. It was just to refer to his as language, as repeating what Lois said. And I was very happy with that, because when cursing is used to contrast a character with other characters, I love that. Like, I like that because it shows, oh, this person grew up with different morals. And that is the whole thing that I enjoy about it. That's why I don't like when one of the things that I really disliked about the original cut of Civil War. I don't know if you guys saw it in theaters, but in the original cut of Civil War, and you can't find it anywhere else. You can't find it like when you buy it. Like when you watch the on Disney Plus, when you watch it in streaming, you can't find it. But in the original cut, the movie released, Spider-Man, when Ant-Man grows, says, "Holy sh!" And like he says that. You can't find that anymore in the other cuts, because I've tried to find it, but I like. When I went to theaters, I remember being very upset about it. And because Spider-Man has never cursed, and is not a character that curses. Like, I'm okay with Deadpool doing it. Like, I'm like, I'm all for that because it's like he was raised differently. But Spider-Man was raised in a specific way. He was raised in a semi-Catholic home, semi-Christian home. So, like, I don't expect him to be cursing. And he doesn't. Like, Spider-Man he doesn't. But people around him do in the comics. So it's like, I feel like it's an important part of that character because of the contrast, because it shows you how he was raised. And the same thing applies to Superman over here. And I enjoyed that was going on because I was like, this is really cool. Like, I like the contrast that is being made, immediately saying this is a Kansas boy who was raised in a semi-Christian home, semi-American Christian home. So it's like, makes sense why he's not cursing, and he's like saying like little like
he's saying like golly or gosh or things like that.
Gosh darn it, yeah.
And it's very endearing. And
well,
I remember,
it's making, again, you talk about, like, we've talked about this with My Adventures with Superman, which is that we all love Superman. Again, Raymond, you're wearing a Superman shirt. But one of the things we find in a lot of Superman media is that they have these Superman be this good person, but they don't make Superman's being a good person a personality trait. They make it, just make it a fact that they don't do anything with. Yeah. And here, one of the things James Gunn does is he gives Superman a personality and makes his goodness a part of the personality.
Is punk rock.
A punk rock, yes. The real punk rock.
Maybe that's the real punk rock is fire line. Yeah. Like, that line was incredible. I was so happy. Like, I was crying, like, of how happy I was for that whole scene. It was really good. But yeah, it's just very endearing what they done with his personality. I remember just like even in the theater when I heard Superman talking like that for the first time, I'm like, Joseph, is that you? In my head, it's like 100% how Joseph would talk, and I love it.
Oh, but both Nathans, laughed uproariously the first time they heard me while we were playing. I think we were playing Mario Kart or something like that. The first time they heard me say fudge muffins as a expletive.
No, that's how I am too. I was like playing D&D with my friends and everybody's cursing and I'm like, freaking way, no.
So, homeschool kids represented by Superman, finally in James Gunn. And again, so that's one of the strengths of it, is that James Gunn, historically, he does not care. It's Rocket Raccoon is going to be Rocket Raccoon, and we're not going to try to downplay that. We're going to make it work. And
own it.
And own it. And so Superman is going to have the red trunks, and he's going to say, gosh darn it. And that's going to be an endearing personality trait of his. That's going to be part of the movie.
Oh, it's so good. So
I really love that little post-credits scene of like it did like that
one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is the post-credit scene.
Like it's like not some big lore drop or anything else. It's just like a very cute character moment between him and Mr. Terrific, and like when he accidentally pisses off Mr. Terrific after like Mr. Terrific tries fixing a city, and he gets upset because Superman gives him like a little quote unquote critique, and Superman's like, "Gosh,
such a jerk."
Gosh darn, I can be such a jerk sometimes.
Yeah,
so funny.
Yeah. It's so good. Oh my god, that really endeared me. Like I was like, I wasn't expecting something big because I think James Gunn said was really specific that there wasn't going to be anything big at the end, in the credits and stuff. But I was really happy with that because I was like, oh my gosh, you made this. I can see myself in this character. I can see myself in this character now. And I couldn't see him in one of my biggest critiques about Man of Steel. I don't know if I've said this before in the podcast or if I said it during the Superman, my adventure with Superman. But one of the things I hated about that movie is that he destroys someone's property when he gets mad at them. And he steals someone's property when he gets back from saving people from an oil spill, the big explosion, the oil spill. He returns, he steals someone's clothing, and leaves. And I was really upset with that because, and then at the end where he kills Zod, I was like, this movie was cool. It was a cool movie, but the person that wrote this doesn't understand who Superman is.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my thoughts when I came out of watching Man of Steel for the first time. I was like, this is a cool movie. It's good, but it's not Superman.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Well, that's
'cause it's
interesting because I've had this argument with Zack Snyder, Man of Steel, Superman fans, and one of the things that you see, because I actually defend to some degree some of the decisions made with the movie, but not how they were made.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, we've had the whole contrast, because one of the things that's in this movie that's interesting that people talk about is that, you know, in the Man of Steel, when, you know, there's a giant super powered fight, buildings are destroyed and people die. And this one, you know, there's a city-wide destroying fight and everyone gets evacuated. Now, here's the thing. The Man of Steel thing is more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the Superman one is less realistic. And to some degree, you can't evacuate a city that fast. That's just, you know,
I'm going to disagree with you for one thing. It is in a world where stuff like that happens all the time, there would be a system made to evacuate cities really fast. In fact, there are some animes with like kaiju battles that have like integrated underground systems to like get people like immediately evacuated of the place. So I think that like a quick evacuation, although not very, very realistic, makes sense that there is like a specific system to like.
It's realistic for the logic of this setting.
But that's
like,
the thing.
I think
the
it just means in
advantage
general
of someone like James Gunn saying, "I'm putting this essentially in a fantasy world."
So, but like in more general setting, in the more like general layman's way, it doesn't seem as realistic.
So this is the thing: is that what the movie didn't do with a lot of those things, as you're saying, is that they didn't earn a lot of these moments. So what I would always tell my friends is that we don't ever see in Man of Steel Superman trying to avoid people dying in those situations. Now, I would be down for a story that lots of people died, but you could see Superman clearly trying to avoid that.
Yes.
Also, with Superman, I don't mind Superman killing Zod, but you didn't establish how much against that his code that was, and so what a cost it was for him to do that, so that moment didn't matter in the way that it should have. Because, like you said, Superman was always very casual about his morality, and they didn't establish which parts of his code were important to him and which weren't. So, like, it was like, so he just, you know, randomly can smash people's cars that he doesn't like. He can randomly do these things. They were very casual about Superman's morality and his character in those things. So when he says, okay, I have to make an exception for Zod, it doesn't land.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things in this one to do. Like, I get annoyed with this Superman when he decides to save a squirrel, even though there are other people that are potentially dying right now because he's playing it soft with this monster. Like, I have a problem with that sort of lack of priority. But they are at least still attempting to establish Superman's character through the choices he is making here.
And plus, you could even argue the movie calls him out for that as well, with the Justice Gang coming in and being the opposite
still
side.
Contrasting them as like not the real punk rock because they're behaving that way.
I actually really, really enjoy that scene, that complete scene with the monster, because he does stuff everything that the other Superman wouldn't have. And it's like he stops him from hitting a building. He keeps him in a central area so it doesn't hurt anyone. He tries to keep it away from everyone around him. So I don't think he's prioritizing the animal. I think he's prioritizing everyone around the area, and it's shown by him trying to keep him in the central area where he is at. And the squirrel just got in the way because it's a squirrel. So he saves the squirrel. And saves the dog later, I think, as well. I think he saves the dog. Or was that the first thing he saved? I think he saved the dog.
I think it's the dog first. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's the dog first. He saves the dog, and then he saves the squirrel. And I think, again, I feel like it just shows that, Superman cares about life in general on Earth.
To a
He
fault,
cares about
arguably.
life in general. And I think that's beautiful, and he doesn't want to kill the monster either. He's like, no, don't kill it. We don't know, if it knows what's doing. He's kind of giving the monster the benefit of the doubt, which I really enjoyed as well. He's not trying to kill it immediately either, but is the Justice
Gang.
Justice Gang.
that-
Yes.
Justice Gang, who comes along and actually does the thing. By the way, I am very confused because isn't the logo just say Justice League? Isn't it Justice and then
I don't
the
think they
L?
had a logo. Did they have a logo in the
Yeah,
movie?
they had a J for Justice, and then the other one is an L, League.
I didn't notice
So,
that, but
I was very confused why they didn't have the name when the logo has the initials. It has
my
the
suspicion
Justice
is
League.
the L is for Maxwell Lord.
Okay, so it's a person who is
Because they're
so
corporate
Justice-
branded. They're
Yeah,
corporate
Funded
branded.
by Maxwell Lord, they mentioned.
Gotcha. Interesting. I wonder if they're going to turn that into the Justice League.
Because eventually they're
thing.
going to do a Justice League film.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Like,
but I
that's
wonder if
definitely what
that's
they want
best
to set
confirmed
up.
that.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to be the setup for that. That it's
Maybe.
this is supposed to be a branding, but it turns into the Justice League logo because it is the Justice League logo. It's literally how it's been. Even in the Justice League series of having the J and the L together.
Guess we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, anyways.
So I think we lost track of the plot. So yeah, we're still at the beginning of the movie. He recovers. He fails a fight against the Hammer Barovia guy, and we learn right away that this was all part of a plot by Lex Luthor in order to do typical Lex Luthor things, but among those things being humiliate Superman. So we see right away that Luthor is very smart in the sense that he's able to read all Superman's moves because he's been analyzing him for these past few years he's been around, and so he's able to have this whole system in place where he knows exactly what move Superman's going to do and immediately counters that move with by shouting out different numbered moves to his personal Superman. And so a lot of the encounters they have is just him yelling 1A 1A 2B 2B to do with different kinds of moves to break down Superman.
No, I think that's one of the best ideas in the movie is that's how to have that be the way a Superman versus Lex Luthor fight works was just completely, I thought this is perfect.
Very much a brain versus brawn.
Did you guys immediately know that was a Superman clone? Because I was immediately that's a Superman clone.
I mean, they called Ultraman right away, almost right away. And
Yeah,
Ultraman is some variation of Superman.
I saw the breakdowns of this is Ultraman and he's hidden underneath there, and it's he's with Lex Luthor, and it's well, the most obvious thing is for that to be Bizarro under there.
Especially since they got into the Fortress of Solitude right away, and they don't bother to explain. It was
that was clever. That definitely thinks this is genetic code.
That is set up because he specifically says how did that happen? It can only enter with my DNA. What?
Yeah, and that's the main hint right there.
It's a clone. I immediately I was this is a clone.
It's a very good idea. I like that a lot. And calling him Ultraman, it's because of course Lex Luthor. Well, what's better than Super Ultra? That's perfect.
Yep.
It's a comic book reference to the different universe where Superman is a bad guy. So I understand, but not a lot of people would know that. So
so he doesn't bring in irrelevant information to the movie. They don't try to reference that beyond that one, name.
But I think it makes it so that the people who know the comic books can immediately clock that and be oh, that's probably a version of Superman, a clone probably, because Superman cloning is such a big part of the Superman mythos.
Just comic books in general, really. I feel if you can accept Superman, if you can accept superheroes in general, you accept comics. Yeah.
Which
exactly.
This movie, if you could sum up this movie in one word, it's sci-fi shenanigans.
Yeah. So yeah, we see Lex Luthor fighting. Like, I really love the people in the company being so excited about
Right?
it. Like, I love how villainous people are in this movie. Just like straight up, just like they don't have any moral quandaries with it. Like, they're just like,
It's
no,
literally just a job to them.
I
That's
know who I am working for. I, I like. We haven't seen that like straight up, and I don't think I have seen it in a superhero movie of someone like, because usually it's like, oh, they don't know, oh, they think it's a good guy and they don't know it's actually a bad guy. It's like, no, they know it's the bad guy.
Tech bro
And
henchmen.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. They are henchmen, and that's so good. Like,
Yep.
and it's like henchmen know who they are working for. They know that they're working for the villain, and it's like there's a whole like hiring process as well, like in Gotham City as well. So like I'm hoping they do that. They come back with that of like having goons that like dress up like the villains and stuff like that, because that's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
But
it really is just a great modern take on like a super smart super villain with his henchmen. It's like, yeah, again, like Lex Luthor never actually has to raise a hand at all in this movie, and same for his tech bro goons. They're all just behind screens, all just like working to enhance his smarts and utilize his smarts. Like that really is just like a great modern interpretation of a villain like Lex Luthor and people who serve under him. They don't need to be like typical goons, like, yeah, boss, we'll beat up this guy, boss. Like, no, we'll just like, yeah, boss, we'll type up this stuff on the screen for you, boss.
yeah, so they do that. And what comes next? Is it
I think essentially like we switch to him being Clark Kent. We get like a scene of the Daily
Yep.
Planet, and then like eventually we have the interview scene with him and Lois, because like there's at first this tease of like, oh yeah, no one else knows who he is, especially like Lois. Like they have like the whole rapport of like him being the oblivious small town reporter, and she's like the big city slicker reporter. And then we cut to like him being in Lois's apartment later, being like, we do such a great job of fooling everyone. No one actually knows we've actually been together this whole time. Aren't we so good at this?
What do you think about this new Lois? Joseph?
I mean, I think the actress. I mean, again, one of the great things about this movie is the cast. I think that this, Lois. I was not sold on her at first. Again, I'd seen her in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I liked her in that, but I wasn't sold on her as Lois. But watching this movie, I really like her a lot. I think I have mixed feelings about their relationship as they establish it here. I mean, I think that this is interestingly a case where I feel like rushing into them already being together is maybe a mistake, because there's so much about their relationship that we haven't explored for the past, many years of movies, that a modern take of like, what would a modern take of, him liking her, but her being not liking him, and allowing their relationship to grow and stuff like that you could do rather than just skip to them being together. And passing over all of the kind of ethical quandaries of, being reporters but keeping the secret of Superman and all that stuff. There's a lot of aspects of the relationship that they just kind of don't explore, because they want to, like every other movie, just cut to they're together now. And, some of how we could talk about this in the kind of journalistic reporter section, but I like the portrayal of Lois and the relationship in many regards. I don't as much like the portrayal of Clark Kent and Superman, the relationship, because he does in the reporting scene come across as extremely unprofessional reporter and extremely emotionally immature, to the degree that, multiple times during the movie, I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit on Lex Luthor's side, because he's so, again, he constantly is like, of course I should want you to be unethical as a reporter, Lois. How awful that you're expecting me, us to hold to some kind of journalistic standards. And of course I should be allowed to just smash a door into Lex Luthor's office, and I'm not a danger to society.
Where's the dog?
Of course I should be allowed to just, torture, by at most legal definitions, a government
sovereign
state, a sovereign leader of a sovereign state. And how dare you want me to hold to some kind of international law things. And the movie itself tends to validate Superman's point of view about this rather than other people's. And so, you know, it's to some degree that kind of dynamic they're playing with Clark and Lois, where he's kind of extremely emotionally immature, but the movie doesn't push him to develop his maturity as much as, you know, Lois being like, blaming herself, being like, oh, I'm not good at relationships. And then her being like, and then later on being like, you know, it's just, you know, I'm so cynical and you're so optimistic and you see everyone is beautiful. And then him being like, well, that's the real punk rock. You know, some of that, I think, like I said, I like they're giving Superman a personality, and I like the fact that they're, you know, saying that he, you know, that they're building some of those things out. I do think sometimes in their relationship, he comes across to me as kind of emotionally immature and annoying in ways that they don't show him doing character development to grow from. So I have mixed feelings about the Clark-Lois dynamic, as I would say.
I think for me, essentially, this movie is just kind of missing a third act payoff between Lois's and Clark's relationship. Because, like, I think you're right in sense that, like, they both have ways they could have matured, and I think their relationship could have been a great a catalyst for both of them maturing in like separate parallel directions. It's just we never had a final moment where they like both had like a reconciliation moment where they paid off and like both matured as a result. Like I was kind of expecting when they eventually like got back to when Lois took him to his parents' house, I was kind of expecting them to have one more conversation where they did have some sort of reconciliation moment where they would have like shown maturity growth on both ends, but they didn't do that, and they just kind of skipped straight to next time they saw each other they kissed.
Well, the thing is, I feels like they thought they did that in the moment where they're talking together and he goes off to save Krypton.
I don't know. I don't think characters need to have I don't think characters need to change in every movie. Like for me personally. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing it more like a comic book. I feel like Superman is going to change and develop as we see more of him in this universe. Maybe it's because I'm younger. Maybe it is because I'm younger. But I don't know. I kind of related more to that scene of him being upset with her. Because I felt like him. I was on his side. Like, I thought she was being annoying. Like, I personally think that she was being annoying.
So you thought that her saying that, hey, you can't just go around treating foreign countries however you want. You have to have journalistic standards of practice. And, hey, these are questions that people actually have and should be asked by a responsible reporter. And him being like, why are you doing this? You thought that was kind of
it's because, again, like you're saying, like he's emotionally immature right now. I don't know. I think I've been like that in a relationship before, so I find it to be real. Like I find it like in reality, sometimes those things don't change, and that's why you kind of ruin a relationship because you are emotionally immature. And like, I do understand you're saying like the movie takes his side on things, but I don't know if I agree with that because I think it is a Superman movie, but I think most characters around him don't agree with his way. Like even at the end where like they are they're helping him out in the other country. The Justice League goes in there and the Justice Gang goes in there and they do their thing. They're not holding back. They are killing people. They're killing like soldiers, and they kill the person in charge. Mm-hmm. Like one of my favorite scenes is that hot girl just like going like, I am not Superman, and just drops the guy. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I do think that he is immature right now, and I think that would it be more satisfying if there was a conclusion to that, and he would like apologize and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just
to
again, like
her.
in the same
Yeah.
way that like she kind of says, okay, I have to grow in this way. There is some evidence that he acknowledges either through his actions or his dialogue. Again, you can show not tell. That he's saying, okay, I have to grow in this particular way as well. That would be
Right?
fair.
I think he's still at a that's why I say like maybe when the character grows a bit more, because he's young.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how old they made him. Like they didn't specify. Like maybe he's in the 30s, I think, right?
Yeah,
like,
he's in
it must be
30s.
like
Yeah.
I think so.
30.
Yeah.
I think it's a young Superman. I think he grew up like he grew up in a small town and stuff like that. We do see that he has like a softer dad, and a more like a kind of like his mom kind of goes like, yeah, your dad's such a softie and whatever. Like, so it's like I think that I think he feels his emotions a lot.
Yes.
And
Like I feel like I
that-
really appreciate how they depict how he wears his heart in his sleeve, and I feel
Yeah,
like they,
absolutely.
I feel like they do it in a way that like really it shows honesty and messy by showing how messy it is. Because I feel like in a lot of days past when you have a character or describe them as a character that like wears a heart in their sleeve, it's more like, oh yes, I'm just such a nice person, or I feel so good, or I do so much good, and like you just like it's sort of like a term that's said but not really seen or felt. So I felt like in this movie, they really try to go out of the way to like make you feel how much he feels, where like it's really messy for him how much he wears his heart in his sleeve. It's not just a romantic thing, it's very like messy, almost dangerous thing for him, because like it's so painful for him, like that scene where like Lex Luthor kills a random civilian that Superman like didn't know that well,
one of the best scenes in the film.
Yeah, and like that really just shows how
effective.
much Superman so deeply cares, to the point where like it really hurts him on the inside. So like you can tell like he's vulnerable on the inside. That's really is. Like that's kind of like his kryptonite in a sense. And so I feel like this movie's trying to paint that picture.
Exactly, and I think that that's his flaw. Like I think what you're describing with him with Lois in that scene, which I was on his side in it, of course, but I do think he was immature about it. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I was on his side is because I've been on that side before. And I felt annoyed at the other people because they are saying something that's right and logical, but I am very emotional, so I respond with my emotions instead of what's logical in the moment. And I feel like that's the contrast that they're bringing in that relationship, is that Lois is very logical and Clark is very much like this very emotional person. And like I do get what you say. Like I think it would have been better as a satisfying story arc to like address that, but I feel like it's more realistic if they don't. Like I find it more realistic, like that it doesn't, and like it feels more like it's a character flaw that is not just gonna be resolved in this movie. Like I think it's gonna be resolved later.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that it goes back and forth because again, it's like Nathan said, if they make that such a central aspect of like plot, character, and theme, it's like, okay, it's about his relationship with Lois, which they make a central relationship. It's about his character and who he is, and then it's about the themes that they're addressing. And if you make that a central aspect of the story where it meets all the parts of the story, which is plot, character, and theme, and then you don't resolve it, then you are making the story less satisfying. Now, again, you can have a personality trait that's just a personality trait that doesn't change because it's not central to the plot, character, and theme. Like, again, I don't know what you want to say, like, the fact that Tony Stark can be kind of a jerk to people isn't, a central part of his character arc in the first movie. So it doesn't change, Now, other aspects of his selfishness, his priorities, they make that central. And so then when you follow that, but then his larger character arcs, of personality traits change throughout the course of other movies. but they weren't made the central aspect of the story that they're addressing here. Now, again, that's another objection I kind of have to other aspects of the story. There's a lot of people who object to the plot twist around Jor-El. I actually don't. I actually don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with the fact that they bring it up once and then they never bring it up again until they resolve it. And so it's like, okay, you just made the central crux of your story not super developed throughout the story. You know, and that's, again, a storytelling flaw, not like an idea flaw or, you know, it's an execution flaw rather than a concept flaw.
I also felt that having the war happening and the world cracking apart and
multiple movies happening at once.
Yes, and like I can have that as a criticism in the fact where it's like I felt like even with the fight, and that was the problem. It's like there was the fight with Ultraman while the city was getting like split open. So there was the sense of like I was like, okay, where like
well, and the thing is, you can do all these things together if you put them. Like, for example, I'll give you an example: is that if he decides to turn himself in because he says, "Look, I can see how they would see me as a threat, and it's actually maybe a good thing for me to not think that I can be arrogant enough to be, you know, above everyone else because I'm now having second thoughts about my own identity because of this thing." Then it's like, okay, this thing that's happening where he's turning himself in is related to this other thing, which is other. But instead it's, I'm going to turn myself in because of the dog. And again, not to be, you know, putting anything on that about the dog, but I'm saying that's less relevant to the character arc that they established as more relevant. And that's just an example of how you can do all the same stuff they wanted to do, but make it fit together better as a story. So each plot point feels more developed throughout.
You just need to like restructure things a little bit. It kind of felt like all these plot points were trying to go through the same door at once, and they all got stuck. Whereas if they went in line in an orderly fashion, it would totally work.
Yes.
It felt because when I was like in that third act, when the third act came along, it like I felt like it's like, okay, win the fight so you can do the other thing. It's like, come on, win the fights. Like, let's move on.
Right.
So it felt, I felt like I was like a bit worried. I was more worried about and I understand that that's like maybe intentional, but like I was too worried about the world splitting apart for him to be focusing on this other fight right now. Which like I don't think it was going to be easy for him to solve that, but I do think that I always wonder, like a lot of my questions is always like, why does he just shoot people into space? Or things into space. I've always wondered that about every Superman movie, because I mean he has done it in animated properties before and he has done it in the comics. I think if you think they are able to even the Superman show, the Superman and Lois, he did that a lot. He would take them away into space, like the bad guys. Like, so I was like, oh, like, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've always thought, because it's like, it takes away time for the villain. You can help people while you're doing that. So it's like, it's always weird when he doesn't, because he can. It's like, so I find it strange.
And there's kind of ways. I mean, again, I didn't bother me so much again with some of these supervillains, because it's like, okay, they are establishing that the Engineer and Ultraman are powerful enough that he can't just, you know, do whatever he wants with them.
Yes.
And they establish that. Well, I mean, he could try, you know, but but it's like
it takes the momentum.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I mean, he barely is able to toss them like onto the ground next to them, and they show Lex Luthor is smart enough that he's able to give them instructions, stuff like that. So I can kind of buy some of that, and yeah, I think in some ways James Gunn's idea of Superman is really powerful, but let's have multiple things going on at the same time that he can't all address at once is a good way of solving the, you know, Superman is, you know, really powerful problem. He is also establishing the fact that Superman, this Superman isn't all powerful, which I think
Yeah.
is a decent thing. I'll also say, somebody pointed this out on the internet the other day. This is the only Superman movie, maybe ever, where Superman doesn't save Lois Lane even once in the course of the story, but she saves him multiple times. Which there is a part of it that's like, that's an aspect of the movie and maybe I don't like in terms of their relationship, just because that's kind of an iconic part of it. But I will. But to its credit, I didn't notice it while I was watching the movie.
I didn't notice it either.
Yeah.
So
They weren't particularly in your face about it, no.
No. So regardless, I think so. If there's a larger kind of like positives and negatives of this movie, it's that a lot of great ideas, and the movie does a good job of making these characters people like, hey, I want to see these characters again. But in terms of the through line of making sure all the ideas fit together in a way that by the end you feel the culmination of all these ideas emotionally, and that would be, I think, where the flaw would be, and that's where most people's kind of criticisms of the movie tend.
I was very entertained by everything I saw. I'm so glad that we have it. I wanted to see more of it. I wouldn't say I got the same emotional payoff of it, but then when I watched any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Not to say this movie is bad, it's just more like I felt more from it. I just didn't quite feel the emotional payoff because of the structure, but I still think this is an entertaining movie.
It just felt to me like a animated DC movie. Like it that's how it felt to me, because maybe that's why I enjoyed it the way I did, because it felt like because most of those movies, they don't have a resolution. It's just, this is the part of this is the story we're in right now, and we'll jump into something else later. But I think I don't know.
I think a great thing about those DC animated movies, and we keep bringing this up again, this movie, is that we love those movies because they own the comic bookness so well. Like, you jump into it, you already have it there. And compared to prior Superman movies, especially Man of Steel, this Superman movie owns that comic bookness, that owns that campiness so well. And again, that's why it feels like those things.
And I will say, again, that's again with the positives of it. It does feel like the best of the spirit of those animated shows, and that's its strength. On the flip side, there's more emotional payoff in the final season of Justice League, the original Justice League with Hawkgirl story, than there is in this. There's more most of the if you're talking about individual episodes, sure, maybe this has about the equal payoff to a random episode of Superman animated series, but certainly most season finales of Justice League have more emotional payoff than this movie in terms of character and theme and all of that with their central characters. And I would say that, for me, this gets into kind of the Superman fan thing. When you're a huge Superman fan, your reaction to this movie is split into one of two camps. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but you're either like, thank God, I love Superman so much, finally they're getting him, it's a Superman that I can recognize, that what I love about him. And then you have sort of the other camp, which is sort of where I fall into, which is Superman is as good or better a character than anybody in Guardians of the Galaxy. I shouldn't have more emotional resonance in a Guardians of the Galaxy movie than I do with Superman. Okay. And so my disappointment is that Superman is as good or better than the Guardians. Movie should be as emotionally resonant with me as those movies, and it's not. And that's a disappointment.
I wonder if this really has to do with the pressure of writing this movie. I really truly do. I wonder where that came from, because James Gunn has shown once and twice that he's pretty good at writing very satisfying stories. Even with Suicide Squad and even with Peacemaker, that show and the movie, the character arc is incredible. But I think the problem is maybe that James Gunn, when it comes to writing, James Gunn is better at writing a redemption storyline, and I think he couldn't do that with Superman. And that's why maybe he's better at telling stories where the character is being redeemed. And since Superman doesn't need to be redeemed, maybe that's where, like, that's why it's not as good as his other stories. Because if you see a bunch of James Gunn stories, his main focus is redemption. His main focus is characters from the bad going to the good. And I feel like he had to write a bit differently in the way that this movie is built. And I feel like maybe that's where the flaws come from. And I think maybe it's from that idea that, like, I do think he's kind of writing a bit outside of his wheelhouse. And he did his best. And it's not enough, right? Like, I think he could have gotten, like, he probably did have help writing this, but definitely you can see why it's happening. Like, I do think that just analyzing the other movies, like, I do think that's why he chose the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic book to introduce this version of Supergirl, because that character, I know that he's going to do a really good job at redeeming that character into becoming a good version of herself.
This is, I think, I want to highlight, I think you hit on it, which is that this movie was more out of James Gunn's wheelhouse than some of his other stuff. And I think he probably didn't have enough time to really do something out of his wheelhouse. Again, you listen to the test screenings and people like talk about it and the stuff he went through and the stuff he did go through where he talked to different writers where, because he is an edgy guy, first of all, and he couldn't write a movie that was as edgy as he typically does. There were certain scenes that were like, cut from the movie. One of them was, was the Guy Gardner telling Superman, like, don't be a pussy. And then Superman says, hey man, like, there are kids around. And he says, that's why I said don't, and it's like, that's a great interaction. Oh my goodness. But on the other hand, he's like, yeah, but families are going to see this movie. It's like, maybe that's too edgy for families. Of course, he doesn't have a problem with talking about having a harem, but like, you can't have the line that says the word pussy. But I think that's an example.
Mean, kids are watching anime. So they know what a harem is.
Yeah. Oh my god. But they also know what pussy means, So that's an example of like how he's kind of second guessing himself a lot with this kind of story. Is like, I don't know how to do a family movie, in this way. And
like, it's not just trying to do a family movie, it's doing a family movie about Superman, who a lot of people have lots of opinions about.
And so, like, I think maybe with like another year going through drafts and figuring out, he would have been able to find some of these things. But it's true, with other things, he could do it faster and more naturally because they were more in his wheelhouse. And this, he just didn't have the time he needed to do something that he's not as comfortable doing.
Because he's at the end of the day, he's just really good at writing messy characters. And like, the messiest we saw the Superman's, like I mentioned earlier, is his emotions, because he works his heart in his sleep very hard. But that's the messiest we ever saw him.
I mean, he's so good at it that, again, when I got out of watching Suicide Squad, I hated Peacemaker. Like, I hated him with passion. And watching Peacemaker, I fell in love with the character. I was like, oh my, like, the way he showed his redemption from what he did, like the guilt, the all the stuff, like, wow. Like, it just made me like a character that I didn't even know, like, I wanted to like. So he's a good writer. It's just that he's a good writer at this specific thing. And I feel like
I think he could have done this, but he needed more time because it was outside of his wheelhouse.
It's like the time and the pressure and the fact that it's a character that so many people are attached to, where like he had the freedom to do whatever he wanted with Suicide Squad or Guardians of the Galaxy, because no one cared about them at that point.
And the fact that he did as well as he did, that he established a character as, oh, I like this guy and I want to see more of him, despite all of the damage in that specific way that Zack Snyder did, or at least just didn't help, is still a
win. Yeah, it's still a definite win for sure.
Because he's a good character writer. Like, it's just like that's why these characters are good. These characters are interesting. I want to see more of these characters. I want to see this Jimmy Olsen. Like, he feels like the most comic book accurate Jimmy Olsen I've seen in a while.
Jimmy
I
Olsen,
like
I
him.
don't get. It's just what's it's yeah. I want to see more because I want to understand what the heck this is all about.
Like, what are you talking? In the comics, he has so much girls around, like, just like pining for him. Like,
Which well, I mean, the thing is though, in the comics, it makes sense because it's like he's this big nerd, but he's a big nerd leading an incredibly big life. And so it's like he's going to weird planets all the time. He's got exclusives with Superman.
Isn't he getting a show?
Well, yeah, they're doing an anthology series about Jimmy Olsen, going and interviewing different like supervillains and characters throughout the DC universe, which is so it'd be interesting. I mean, look, Mr. Terrific was the character though that stood out for stood out the most.
Should get his own movie.
They're optioning. They're looking at doing a TV show for him.
Nice.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Anyway,
that fight scene in Mr. Terrific was so terrific. Like, I remember like telling Joe, being like, man, like I like the idea of Mr. Terrific being in the movie, of course. It's just like up until now, I was like, why Mr. Terrific of all people? I had no idea. Like, he's a cool character and all, but I just never would have guessed him to be any of the characters to show up in a Superman movie of all things. And then that fight scene in Mr. Terrific happened with all the T-Spears. I'm like, oh, that's why. James Gunn just wants to do another Yondu scene, but like cranked up to 11. And you know what? This is amazing.
So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of inside baseball because I did see the movie with Nathan, and there's one scene in there where Lois is trying to talk about her problems with Mr. Terrific, and I saw Mr. Terrific's reaction to that. The complete, I do not care about your drama.
That's a deadpan face, you crazy white woman.
And I looked over at Nathan and I was like, that is exactly how you look when anybody tells about their personal drama to you. and Nathan when I told Nathan that, he just burst out laughing. It's like, I have never seen a character who reminded me more of Nathan than Mr. Terrific in the moment. And so like James Gunn knows how to take these characters nobody cares about and says, well, this is why they're cool. This is why you should care about them.
He makes them like he embraces both the comic book aspect, but also makes them so authentic and real. It's like a perfect blend of both.
And that's his strength, is like taking comic book characters that nobody cares about, nobody knows, and saying, like you just said, Joseph, it's just like, this is why they're cool, and this is why you should care, because they are cool characters. And I love that. Like, I love it because not a lot of people want to touch, like, let's be honest, a lot of Black, Latin American, like any other race, superheroes are not that popular. But introducing them like this, it really helps sell the fact that you don't need to change people's races in movies. You just need to introduce characters that are already that race, that are already that thing, and make them good and write them good. That's all you need to do. Like, you don't need to change that other guy into something. And like, see, as a Latin American person, I really dislike when people like change, like for example, I watching the one of the things I hated about that Scoob movie that came out, like the Scoob movie.
Oh yeah.
They changed Velma into like a Latin American person. And I was angry about that. I was like, I don't want your stupid coin representation.
Don't pander to me. Just tell me a good story with cool, real characters. That's all I want.
Give me Velma. I just want to see Velma. She's my favorite character. I don't need her to say oh, qué bueno, hola. So I care about them.
Because
Like,
the thing about telling authentic stories with authentic characters is you're going to see yourself in them regardless, because you're going to see the fellow humanity in them. It's not necessarily about the race. It's about, oh, they have similar tendencies, or they have similar desires, or they have similar habits to me. Great, I see myself in them. That's all I need. You don't need to pander to me on the race level.
And it works on the other side too. Again, one of the reasons that there was this trend of like, let's race swap for a while was because they didn't have the confidence that they could create new characters or bring in the older characters in a way that would make them popular. They just didn't have the confidence that they could do that.
Yeah.
But someone like Mr. Terrific, again, I was just like, man, he's like one of my favorite parts of this movie. And I can resonate with his constant like annoyance of people, you know, and they do so well because like, and he's a different kind of smart person than we typically see, because we typically will see like, you know, the smart person who's maybe extremely nerdy and not cool, and that's their charm, is that they're not cool and they're kind of nerdy and silly, you know. And then we have the Sherlock version, which is the very, you know, closed off to emotions and very inhuman sort of seeing. And then so now we have Mr. Terrific, who's neither of those things. What he pulls on is just being perpetually annoyed by people all the time because they're not as smart as you are. Now,
But he's still a genuinely good person. Like, he's cranky but good, and that's
exactly.
great.
But he's a genuinely good person. He's a genuinely good person, and he's not disconnected from humanity in any sort of way. He's doesn't talk like an alien or talk like someone who's just completely left-brained. You know, he will say things like, you know, I don't need your help. I'm a goddamn Mr. Terrific. And so like, again, in the same way that Iron Man was a different kind of brainy person. And so I think it's interesting. We talk about like, what is James Gunn good at, is taking characters nobody cares about and saying, this is why you should care about them.
This is how they're real. Like, this is like their quirks.
But the thing is, that's what he did with Superman with this, is he took a character that a lot of people do not care about.
Yeah.
And he made people care about them. And he didn't do it as effectively as he did with someone like Mr. Terrific, because he couldn't quite make his way through the barnacles of all the expectations that are there with the character that I think are good expectations. I mean, the reason we have a Superman movie is that people like you, the three of us, love him and care about him so much and want him to be, you know, in particular ways. This is one of the reasons why I wish that James Gunn would do a proper Superman sequel. Is I think that he could do, now that he's figured it out, he could actually hit the ground running with something really effective in that way. But he keeps saying he's not going to do a straight Superman sequel. He's just going to have Superman be a major part in some other thing, which is that's what he keeps saying, which is what annoys me. Now, my hope is that what he's doing in the Superman sequel is that it's technically going to be a sequel to Superman and Supergirl and stuff like that, and a sequel to
hope.
So that's why I hope it is, because I do still want, that would still feel to me like a proper Superman sequel.
I want to see James Gunn do Brainiac.
Yes.
He would do really good.
Which is what you could do with a proper Superman Supergirl sequel, is have Brainiac. You could, you know,
introduce Kandor.
Kandor, all of that stuff.
I am excited for that, because I hope he does it, because if he's not going to do straight up like sequel, I wonder if he's like he doesn't want the idea of sequels. Maybe he wants for them to feel like more like, oh, this is this story, this story. Maybe he's gonna do what you're saying and make it like a Superman and Supergirl movie or something like that.
A super franchise.
Yeah, and I think Brainiac is the most logical next step. We haven't seen Brainiac in a movie. We haven't. And I think
which is
that
insane.
Really? I know.
Really insane.
Superman has 4 big villains: Luthor, Zod, Brainiac, and Darkseid.
Yeah, we've seen Zod, we've seen Luthor, we've seen Apocalypse.
We've seen like a little bit of Darkseid.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Brainiac.
Not a single Brainiac. Like multiple animated movies and shows dedicated to Brainiac, but never
he's oftentimes one of the best villains of those movies.
Right.
In those shows.
Yeah.
We even saw kind of like a version of Bizarro, technically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Which again, I
Absolutely.
think is a perfect way to do as like a Lex Luthor villain to have the strong character
Yep.
be. And so like, I would love for James Gunn to say, okay, we've done the Lex Luthor Superman movie.
Yeah.
Which again, because Lex Luthor is kind of like a member of Superman's supporting cast as well as a villain, it's like, yeah, that makes sense for him to be the first villain. But
Yeah.
it's like, let's give us Brainiac. Like we've never
That
gotten
was-
that before.
My dad complained about that. He was like, I wish it was a different villain. Because he was like, we've done Luthor so many times. And I'm like, yes, but he is trying to make a new iteration. And you need to have Luthor as his main villain first before you can establish anyone else. Because if you don't have Luthor established, then, like you said, it's part of his supporting cast. So even when there's other villains, Luthor kind of also sometimes helps out
So
with
in this,
saving
in a-
the world.
imagine in a Superman sequel where it's Superman versus Brainiac, and Lex Luthor's in jail, but they have to let him out to help defeat Brainiac. And you get to see Superman and Luthor as this kind of hateful buddy, comedy film of like how much they hate each other, but how they have to work together.
Perfect.
Brainiac. It's
Well,
like,
yeah.
can you imagine?
Mhm.
Which we, again, never gotten before, except kind of in Superman 2 with Zod. But there's so much potential, especially since they've established Lex Luthor as the internet has dubbed him the world's greatest hater on the planet.
And yeah, I feel like the idea of James Gunn in particular doing Brainiac very much excites me because I feel like that's a character he could do especially well. Like, yeah, because I really like his villain in the Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He may not be like the most famous or beloved villain, but like I really like the High Evolutionary for similar reasons why I like Brainiac in general.
Yeah.
So I feel like James Gunn in particular could do Brainiac very well, just using that as a springboard.
Because the High Evolutionary is basically the Marvel version of Brainiac. So I think it definitely like could be a good he could do it. He could definitely do it. I think he can. I really hope that he does because it'll make it a very good one. So yeah, I think what do you guys think about the introduction of like I really like just introducing like pocket dimensions immediately. Like there was like a lot of different superpowered individuals in this like prisons that Luthor had as well. Just metahumans in general, very like talked about thing. I love introducing what's the name of the guy of
Metamorpho?
What's his name? Metamorpho. Love that. Love his introduction. Love that little interaction that they had in the jail stuff. And like,
I think that the pocket dimension. Go ahead.
He killed that guy. He just killed him. It's like, and him just raking down, just like he's not a bad person. So it's like, trying to help Superman escape.
No, really I think that Lex Luthor. I mean, again, the pocket dimension scene. Another scene I think is absolutely brilliant because again, what is it that one of the things that makes Lex Luthor so cool is the fact that he's so good at science that it's like magic. And so the creativity with which James Gunn utilized that was so great. And saying, yes, I'm going to create a pocket dimension. And I'm going to use it, obviously, to make money and gain power by allowing people to put people in these cells. And I'm going to also then the callousness of like, I'm going to take random people that you save and you care about and kill them. Again, it's like, this is something that like recently in the comics, like Green Goblin had an epiphany about. It's like, oh, I don't have to take family members and loved ones. I can just threaten anyone and you'll get hurt. And so Lex Luthor being like, I'm just going to start killing random people I know you care about as a kind of a way of torturing you
Mhm.
and do that. It's like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's like
way-
peak Luthor pettiness. Like, I have all this science that's practically like magic, and I have all this stuff at my disposal that I could potentially use to help the Earth. But I'm just going to use it to help myself, and more
Now-
importantly, I'm going to use it to like
Also-
piss off Superman.
I will say this again. One thing that I liked about like the Zack Snyder version of Lex Luthor more is they added to that a deeper, more thoughtful reason for his hatred of Superman that they didn't really develop that much in this movie. I think that Lex Luthor's hatred of Superman is deeper than just envy and pettiness, that they didn't develop all that much. And I think that that's, again, a weakness that could have established why Lex Luthor is one of the greatest supervillains of all time. But what he did well is, and in the monkey bots, because again, we have that in our world, the bots that that grow, division and hatred, but they're not even real; they're just bots. And the fact that they found a way for Lex Luthor to do this kind of fantasy sci-fi version of that, brilliant. But they didn't have what was brilliant about the Zack Snyder, which is that, like, I hate you, Superman, because I believe that power and goodness can't go together because of the abuse of my father and my belief in God. Like, that is another part of what makes Lex Luthor great that they didn't have in this movie. So yeah, there's that both
fair.
and that they sometimes miss with this movie.
For me, I felt like it was more like the animated series Lex Luthor, where I don't think he ever got that much depth. He was just always petty and arrogant, which I was always satisfied with.
Me too. I find it that the core of Lex Luthor, at least for me, like, I didn't like the version from Man of Steel personally. I didn't like. To me, he was just insane. He felt like crazy. Like, and I feel like this version is just, I hate Superman because I want because every time I see him, I realize how insignificant we are compared to him. He's more powerful. He can do all these amazing things. I can literally duplicate Superman, but I'll never be as good as him, is what I got from this movie. It's like, he literally made a clone of Superman, yet he's not satisfied with that. Because at the end of the day, he can't be as powerful as that. And like, even when like Lex Luthor has in the past and other stories has like even like put him, like, given himself Superman's powers, his gripe about it is that, but this is artificially made. So it's like, I feel like there's truly an anger in him that it's like, humans can only reach here, and he's gone above and beyond because he was born like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the anger I see in this Lex Luthor, is that, he is more privileged because he was born that way, which is, kind of a hypocrisy because of how wealthy he is and how much power he has over everyone else. And I feel like there is that pettiness and jealousness as well that comes in. Like, no, I was supposed to be the most powerful person in this world, but now you are, just because you're above human. And it even shows here with how I think Lex Luthor has also like just a general hatred to all metahumans. I think he did not like any metahumans, really. It felt like kind of like a mutant kind of thing of like hating anyone who's above human kind of thing. So yeah, that's how I saw it, and I think
basically this Luthor reminded me of that one quote from All-Star Superman. You could have saved the world years ago if you wanted to, Lex, like if you wanted to. And so like that's the impression I got from this Luthor, where like he could have done a lot of good, but he's just so fixated on Superman that like he literally lost sight of the world, to the point where the world was literally threatened by his own pocket dimension because he was so fixated on Superman.
Which again is a part of Luthor. That is the deconstruction of Luthor's high-minded view of his own motivations for killing Superman. But I think that they miss the high-minded justifications that Lex has for himself in this. That I think, and they touch on it because again, it's funny because in interviews, James Gunn actually develops some of these ideas more, where he says, "Look, Lex Luthor sees Superman the way artists look at AI. It's something that takes away that takes away from us and will prevent us from actually ever growing because we'll be reliant on it." And it will also just does it without earning it because it doesn't bring the soul of it. It just kind of does it because it's artificial. And so I think he developed those ideas about Lex Luthor's justification for hating Superman in interviews more than he did in the actual movie. Because again, he says, Superman says, he says, "You're destroying us." But he never says why he's destroying you guys are destroying us. He says, my envy is going to be a version of of saving the motive for me to save humanity. It's going to be the salvation of humanity. He says that your perfection exposes how weak we are, but he doesn't explain why that's a problem for humanity or bad for humanity. In that, again, those things were all done in interviews. It wasn't done in
But don't you think it implies it? Because I kind of got that from the movie, watching it. Maybe because I know Lex Luthor before. Maybe you're saying that maybe you're saying that presenting it to a new audience, maybe they wouldn't understand that completely about him.
I think that it doesn't. I think you're importing text from outside of it that's not exactly in the film itself, and I think that also presenting that in the movie would have made it something that we could wrestle with in the movie, instead of spending all that time just with the deconstruction of it, which is good. They don't do the construction of it as well, which I think is just part of the sloppy storytelling, where I just say, hey, there's a lot of great ideas in here. But some of the sloppy storytelling is making it so it's not as effective.
Makes sense. Any other final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah.
No, I think I think again, like I said, what did it do well? It's what they did well is what James Gunn always does well, which is he takes characters that maybe people don't care about as much, which I think you could say is true of Superman for the past maybe 20 years of the superhero genre, and at the very least wasn't helped by Zack Snyder if it wasn't, actively hurt by him. And say, this is why you should care about him. And I think he did that very well with Superman and with a lot of the other characters. Did really well in finding out ways to say, we're going to establish a superhero world without either having to watch a whole bunch of movies or lower down the superhero-ness of it. And I think there's a lot of great ideas in here. I think that the sloppy execution of those ideas held the movie back from some of the other James Gunn greats. But I think you guys are right that the reason is because he was trying to do something a little bit more out of his comfort zone without quite the time it took to do that. But and I think that for me, as somebody who loves Superman as much as I do and thinks he's as good or better than the other people who have superhero movies, it's too bad that he still doesn't have a movie that I think is as good as, the other superheroes who have these movies. But the final end of the day, they can, now people are excited for another Superman movie again.
Yep.
And
the potential is there.
DC movie again,
yeah,
which gives a chance for the next Superman movie. Now that I felt like by the end in the post-credit scene, James Gunn had figured out Superman and how to portray him going forward.
Yeah.
And so now I'm excited to see, which is why I really want some version of a direct Superman sequel to this, because I'm excited for how
the potential is there, more so than we've had in a long, long time.
Yeah. Yep. I'm excited for that. I think something that you mentioned clicked for me. I think the reason why a lot of people are confused about the footage of his parents saying this stuff is because they don't bring it up again ever. So I think they are confused because a lot of people are leaving the theaters. Even my dad was kind of that must have been fake, right? Because
There's no real
they-
like official payoff or conclusion to
there's
that.
no
other than-
payoff. Yeah, 'cause
yeah.
that must have been just like a lie that Lex Luthor made, but it's like, no, like James Gunn even in an interview was like, no, I said it like 3 different times in the movie that it was the real footage.
Mhm.
Like I said that it, and I heard it. I was like, yeah. When I heard that part, I was like, okay, so it's the real footage.
Mhm.
Moving on, and like, cause I don't know, maybe I listen. That personally, I really listen to when a writer says something, and if it ever changes, I'm assuming, oh, that was a lie. Like if that changes in the story later, then I'm like, oh, that was just an opinion or a lie from another character.
Mhm.
But like, yeah, I think that what you said about it kind of clicked for me, and I think it's because they don't bring it up again. People
Mhm.
assumed that it was a lie, because it's not kind of like addressed again.
Mhm.
And secondly, love the introduction of Supergirl. Some people are mad about it. Some people are like, why is Supergirl a drunk? And
I love it
because
too.
they don't know about the comic books, and they're gonna go on YouTube and they're gonna find out that it is a version of Supergirl that exists, but
Mhm.
it's not the version they are used to, and like that's I think the struggles that you have with audience is that whenever you have an audience that understands what the source material is and other audiences that don't understand what the source material is, and how one of the things that I've always said, each version of the character, it's his own universe, it's his own thing.
Mhm.
I don't like, if you like the Man of Steel version of Superman, okay, it's a different universe. In my mind, that's the Snyderverse.
Mhm.
And that's the version of Superman that exists in that universe. And according to comic books, all universes are canon, even the movie universes.
Mhm.
So, like, I mean, James Gunn killed the entire animated universe now because he like literally did that canonically in the animated last Crisis. He killed all the animated universes, and I was kind of sad about that. But my brother was like, "Yeah, but it's a comic book universe. They're gonna bring them back in the comic books. It's always happens." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I guess you're right. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day." But
No, I think you make an excellent point. I mean, again, this is another place where I think that Supergirl's introduction, because you're right, you and I know from having read a lot of things and watched a lot of things that writers have certain tools to tell you this is real and this is not. And James Gunn pulled out all those writer tools. Like, no, they even had Mr. Terrific say,
Yep.
who's
Yep.
another really smart person, say, no, I trust this. This is really good. And so, but that's all logical and that's all media literacy. They didn't make it feel emotionally true.
Yes.
yeah,
And that's what was lost. And this is where I think also the thing happens with Supergirl. Because she appeared only at the end kind of as almost like a cameo to set up a next movie thing. Well, that's how it
and I
felt.
love that
No. I was
Crypto
gonna say-
is her dog.
exactly.
I kind of like that.
But the thing is, imagine if they had actually had her appear earlier in the story while Superman is really
Wow.
emotionally distressed by the revelation of his parents. And she comes in, again, same kind of scene, she's drunk, and he wants to talk to her about it, but she's so out of it that she can't like have that conversation. And then she leaves and he's just still despondent. And then you have another scene at the end where it's kind of more of a joke. And it's like, and it's then it's like, oh, okay, her arc and her difference between him doesn't feel disrespectful. It feels emotionally resonant with the audience. And so it works for them on an emotional level as well. Like, again, I think everyone who says that this version of Supergirl is bad is wrong. First, canonically in the comics, but then second, also, no, you need the bad teenage girl, irresponsible, to contrast with the aw shucks, good boy. Clark, you need their bickering sibling relationship.
Yep.
So,
And some stories have introduced like a more cold version of Supergirl, like a version that's like very Kryptonian. Some versions have introduced the evil counterpart to that.
I mean, we already got into this with season 2 of My Adventures with Superman.
Which again, that's a great version of her.
So,
yes.
I think that there's so many versions of Supergirl, But this one is very comic book accurate in the fact that she is a grieving soul, that lost her family and had a connection to Krypton. So of course she's gonna go get drunk in all these planets and have fun and stuff like that when she discovered she had superpowers. By the way, I always have found it weird that Superman and all the super people can just go around space and get far away from the sun and still have superpowers. I don't understand that. Does that mean is that saying that the solar power like goes with them? Is it in them? I have never understood.
Didn't they mention that she specifically goes to a place with a red sun just so she can get drunk?
Most stars are yellow. There's only a few stars that are red and blue. Most stars are yellow, so you can fly between planets, and most of them are going to. That's how I understand it.
Got it. Yeah, because that makes sense. But yeah, like you said, Nathan, she's going to
specifically red sun
planet to get drunk. Because they can't really get drunk. The same way that Flash can't get drunk because of his high metabolism.
Yeah,
same with Captain America. All these superheroes just can't get drunk. I think that's fine anyway, because I do not want a drunk superhero flying around anyway.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, I agreed. I mean, that's why that version of Supergirl is kind of scary. But I think it's great. I love her suit as well. She's a pretty good suit.
Great. Gorgeous.
I love the scene of her just getting tossed around by the dog with Krypto.
Like, so that's why Krypto's the way it is. Makes so much sense now.
I love
What about you, Nathan? Any final thoughts?
I just agree with everything you guys said. It was like a good movie, very entertained, had some great emotional moments, also very clunky in a lot of ways, but I think I'm more, even though I have critiques and complaints about it, it's just more like because I care about the franchise, I care about the characters, and even so, I'm still more. It's all that is outweighed by my excitement to see more of this, because I see so much plenty of good here with the characters, with the ideas, with all these potentials. I'm like, I'm just happy we got a solid Superman movie. I'm excited that we have someone who like is in the reins, who's a good writer, who cares about these characters, who knows what's great about these characters, and wants to show that off. And I'm excited just to see more of that with this new DC movie universe. So like, I'm excited to see more, and I feel like this is a great solid start.
Yeah, I'm excited for this, and I hope we get like I don't know what's the next entry on the universe, but
next is Supergirl, and then it's Clayface.
Okay.
I think it's Peacemaker this year.
Oh yeah, Peacemaker season 2 in August. Yeah, this month. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
And then then it's Supergirl, and then it's
isn't Green Lantern happening?
Lanterns.
Oh, there we go.
Lanterns. Actually, Lanterns may be the next show after Peacemaker, and then Supergirl, and then Clayface.
Nice.
And then the Supergirl writer is writing us Wonder Woman movie, and so when the script is happy with that, good with that, then we'll get that.
Hell yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited for all those things to come, and I hope that you really liked this episode. I know we were all around, but we technically set the entire movie in different we
were all over the place, kind of like the movie.
Yes, but thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode.
Wow!
And don't forget, until next time, look up.
Look up.